Welcome back to Max Recaps. Today, I'm going to explain a mystery short drama film titled Houdini, released in the year 2014. The film is based off of the real-life magician and professional escape artist Eric Weiss, who was then renamed Harry Houdini. He became famous worldwide for the phenomenal acts he performed all around the world. His acts were so mind-blowing that he quickly became known as the world's best magician, and everyone wanted to watch him perform his acts live. In fact, his name grew so big that he even performed in front of some of the most important people in the world, like US presidents and other leaders from several different countries. We begin the story by seeing Houdini on top of a bridge, where he will be attempting one of the most dangerous acts he's ever performed, and he explains that most people have problems that make them want to escape their life. But for him, he's always the one put in situations where he has to escape death and launches himself off the bridge. We are then taken back to 17 years in the past, in Ohio, 1896, and this is the year when everything changed for Houdini. We see Houdini and his partner BESS walking into a gentleman's club, and BESS tells everyone that they are tonight's entertainment. However, Houdini doesn't feel comfortable performing in such a place and asks her to cancel the show. BESS refuses and tells them they need to perform here as they need the money and didn't want to waste all the time they put in to prepare for the show. Before Houdini could say another word, she tells the audience that Mr. Houdini will be escaping from the box and he'll be handcuffed and locked inside. But right after, a man laughs and says that the handcuffs belong to Houdini, so the act is already fake. So Houdini says that if anyone here had a different set of cuffs, he will use them instead. And right as he said it, the man told him he's a cop and threw him his handcuffs. This makes Houdini nervous, but he told the cop that he will still continue the show. Right then, the officer puts the handcuffs on Houdini. All the people watching start to laugh, and the room is full of suspense as he turns around and quickly uses sleight of hand to remove the cuffs and impresses the cop and instantly gains respect for being a real magician. After this first show, Houdini was now known as the best escape artist in America and done several shows escaping from not only handcuffs but dozens of chains wrapped around his body. At night, Houdini is with BESS and she tells him maybe it's time to pack it up and move on from doing magic, as it's not leading in the right direction, and wants them to go back to doing a normal job. But Houdini refuses and says he won't give up on his dream, which is becoming the most famous escape artist in the world. We then have a flashback of Houdini from when he was younger, and we get to see the first time he ever witnessed magic, and from that point onward, he began to fall in love with doing illusions. He started his own magic shows on the side of the street and performed all kinds of tricks and illusions to earn some extra money for his family. He used to bring back money for his mother, which always made her day, and he even performed tricks to her, and this made her proud of her son. His father, however, was not too fond of his son being a magician and didn't understand it and never believed in his son of becoming a performer. So one day, Eric decided to leave his hometown and ventured elsewhere with him and his brother. The two of them performed together and continued to support their mother through the little bits of money they earned by performing more acts on the street, and here is where he also met BESS, the girl who would become his performance partner and also the love of his life. The two of them ventured out into the world, visiting all kinds of different places to perform their acts, and this grew their name even bigger and became the most iconic duo in the world of magic. Because Houdini left his brother Dash started to copy the performances Houdini was doing to make sure he remained relevant and could continue doing magic. But Houdini didn't like the fact that his brother was copying his every move and decided to perform acts that no one else would be able to do. And this is when he visited the Johnson County Courthouse in 1896. Houdini talks with the sheriff about locking him up and in a prison cell so he could escape from it, but the sheriff seems nervous and then told Houdini he can't just lock people up for no reason. Houdini smiles and says maybe it's because you're too scared of embarrassing yourself because your jail is not secure enough. The sheriff seems annoyed but also intrigued by Houdini. Houdini then places a bet of $100 to the sheriff and bets that he cannot hold Great Houdini in one of his cells. And to prove Houdini's serious, he allows the sheriff to punch him in the stomach, but Houdini takes it like a champ due to all the training he has to do in order to keep his body in shape so he can perform these astonishing acts. Houdini couldn't afford advertising, and he knew that by taunting the sheriff to allow him to perform the act, he would be looked into by the press and would be all over the news, and thus leading him to gaining even more exposure and fame all over the country. The sheriff agrees and locks Houdini in one of the cells, and before they leave, BESS kisses him, so the sheriff told him to open his mouth, but to his surprise there was nothing there. They leave the cell block and Houdini begins his escape. He actually swallowed the metal Allen key that was passed on by BESS and uses this to remove the chains and escapes from the cell. The next day he was all over the newspapers and was now known for doing the impossible. Everyone wanted to see more and suggested he should escape from other prison facilities in America, and so he accepted what the fans wanted to see and chose to escape from even greater and more secure prisons in the States. His next location was Chicago, Illinois, where the prison guards let him know that this time it won't be so easy, as they make sure they lock up all the prisoners real securely. As always, Houdini has a smile on his face, and they proceed by carrying Houdini to the cell while being covered with thick metal chains all around his body. They put him in the cell and lock him to the chair. But just to make sure he really can't escape, the prison officer straps something around his mouth, as they figured out about the famous kissing technique he pulled on the last prison. Everyone standing outside the cell was ordered to leave the prison block, and the guards locked the cell doors. But after only 5 minutes of leaving him in the cell, Houdini already escaped and was nowhere to be seen. This left all the guards furious, and he was now getting recognition all across the globe and was also given the name the Handcuff King and the Breaker of Chains. One day, Houdini is shopping for items in a store which sells costumes and other accessories he can use for his magic shows, and here is where he meets a man called Jim Collins. Jim is an employee of the shop and also one of Houdini's biggest fans. Houdini is impressed by Jim's work as he constructs his own equipment to sell to magicians. Later on, Jim shows Houdini a design for a magic trick, something that's never been done before, which is to hang upside down in a rectangular box or container and escape from the box without leaving a trace, a trick that would change his life forever. A few days passed and Jim shows Houdini the invention in person for the first time. As soon as Houdini saw it, he immediately wanted to try it out to see how long he could hold his breath for. So Jim and the assistants help Houdini get inside the container, and he is then submerged underwater and locked inside the container. After a few minutes pass, he is fine, but then he signals them to get him out. However, the box was stuck and they couldn't pull him out from the container. They tried using all the manpower they could, but then Jim tells them to step aside as he pulls out an axe to break the glass and free Houdini. When the glass breaks, Houdini is completely fine, and he actually started laughing and told them how perfect it was. The time has come for Houdini to perform the act. Bess and Jim are present on stage alongside Houdini. They tell everyone that in case of emergency, they will have the captain of the Chicago Fire Department ready with an axe in the event that something goes wrong. After a few minutes of presentation, Houdini's ankles get locked into the wooden panel and they begin to place him down into the water and then lock the cage with padlocks so he has nowhere to escape. Jim instructs the helpers to bring over the screen to place in front of the water tank, and after 2 minutes, Houdini was still trapped inside the container. People in the crowd begin to shout that there must be something wrong, and this makes everyone else worried and beg them to stop the show and check that he is all right. After many minutes of intensity and constant uproar from the audience, they finally tell the stage workers and the head of the fire department to get him out as quickly as possible with the axe. But right as he was going to smash the glass, they all notice Houdini is missing from the container, and when the guy turns around, to everyone's surprise, it was actually Houdini who was holding the axe, leaving the crowd speechless. Due to all the press and talk of Houdini spreading throughout the nation, soon enough he started being investigated by the United States Secret Service. After receiving the file of Houdini, the director of the Secret Service, named John Wilkie, points out that Houdini is an immigrant and speaks many different languages. His performances have now put him as one of the highest earners in the United States and even makes more money than the president. His past intrigues the director, and they begin taking a further look into his history to understand everything they can about him and set up a meeting between them. Later that night, Houdini meets with a man called Sir William Melville, the chief of the British Secret Service and MI5. He tells Houdini that at first, Houdini was deemed to be a threat to United Kingdom and other countries. But after talking, he told Houdini that he has revised his passport for him, so instead of being an immigrant, his place of birth is now the United States of America, and says he was born in Wisconsin. Houdini thanks William, and after William tells Houdini that because of his skills and expertise, Houdini would be very useful to them, as Houdini can get close to some of the most important people in the world and governments who are enemies of the United Kingdom and United States. After 5 sold-out shows in Berlin, the Kaiser family requested a private show from the great Houdini himself, but they were not ecstatic about the performance thus far. So then, Houdini requested to Jim that they need to perform something incredible to win them over and impress them, just like the Secret Service wanted. So Houdini will now attempt the bullet catch trick. Houdini tells them to pick their best marksman and tell them to test the weapon. He gets the bullseye first time, and Houdini tells the marksman that he can trust him with his life. After, Houdini stands in front of the bullseye and the rifleman also gets in position. He shouts out to the rifleman to fire the shot, but the rifleman hesitates and doesn't want to kill Houdini. After shouting many times to fire the shot, he eventually takes it, and to everyone's surprise, Houdini catches the bullet and the Kaiser stands up in applause for the magician. It was revealed that Houdini had Jim make a magnetic rod that they used to insert the bullet and used this to bring the bullet back out, and Houdini was holding it this whole time. The next day in Hungary, Houdini meets a man called Riley. Houdini tells Riley about the Kaiser's plans to build 7 battleships and other secrets he overheard while being around the Kaiser's family. Riley tells Houdini how impressed he is by the work and information he has been able to tell them, and said he will let William know about the details. After, Riley tells Houdini that William has a gift for him, a little red book all about Russian grammar, and Riley sets him on the next mission. After talking, Houdini goes back to his room and him and Bess spend some time together at the hotel. But all of a sudden, he gets a knock at the door. The room service give him a note in which he is startled by. He tells Bess that he's working with some important people and that she can't tell anyone about what's going on. Right after, Houdini goes to Moscow, where he performs to a prestigious family who are also the leaders of Russia. Houdini begins his performance in front of the family and told them all to write down a wish on a piece of paper, and he will make any one of these wishes come true. So after writing the wish, it gets placed inside the box, and he told the daughter to pick one of the wishes. After looking at what they wrote down, he told them he can't read Russian and asked if they could translate it to him. Once they translate it, she begins to laugh and says that the wish is unfortunately impossible to do. He asks her what it is, and she said someone has wished to hear the Kremlin bells ring again. The bells haven't been rung for more than 100 years, and they keep telling him that this one is 100% impossible. He opens the window and starts to perform the trick. He takes a handkerchief and a bit of cloth and puts the cloth inside the handkerchief, and he pulls it out. It turns into a piece of rope, and then asks the Grand Duchess Anastasia to pull the rope, and each time she pulls, the bells begin to ring. They couldn't believe their eyes and bowed on the floor for blowing their minds with something they deemed to be impossible. Houdini visits William back in London, and Houdini tells him everything the Russians are up to and their plans. William tells him what a wonderful job he's done and how he's impressed that he got the Kremlin bells to ring, and asks him how he done it. He then reveals to William that he had already written down his own wish on the pieces of paper, which is to ring the Kremlin bell. So when he asked the daughter to pick a wish, he simply replaced it with his own one that he had already written down in Russian. After that, he told the audience he can't read Russian, so he had the wife read it to him. After reading it out loud to everyone, Houdini of course already knew what it was and had his assistant Jim already posted up in a tower with a sniper rifle, and each time she pulls the rope, he would shoot the Kremlin bell in order to pull off the trick. He then tells him about the German ambassador and asks him to retrieve confidential information about the plans of Germany. Houdini has a plan to retrieve the information with a new performance using a safe. Jim notifies the audience that Houdini will only have 10 minutes of breathing time within the safe and he needs to break free. But Houdini wasn't actually inside the safe, and as soon as the act begun, he went to the roof of the building and scaled down the side of the building to enter the ambassador's office. Once inside, he found the safe containing the confidential information, but moments later, he heard the ambassador coming back to the office, so he decides to hide inside the safe. The ambassador enters the office to spend time with a girl, but while doing so, he notices that the safe isn't all the way shut. He then closes the safe, leaving Houdini inside. Although Houdini is a master escape artist, all his tricks have been strategically calculated to pull them off, and Houdini has never been inside a real safe, especially one which is as secure as this one, leaving him with only minutes to escape, but this time it's for real. His partner Jim stalls time for the audience and makes everyone in the crowd worry by saying he's stuck inside or something must have gone wrong, but Houdini is actually trying to get out of a real safe as they speak. He worries for a moment, then tells himself that he's the best at what he does and begins to remember how many locks he heard when he closed the safe. After that, he uses his tools to pick the lock and escapes just in time as Jim opens the safe, revealing that inside all along was his 10-year anniversary gift to his wife. He then gives the documents to William and heads back to the stage, but everyone is shocked when Houdini is standing at the back of the audience and tells his wife how happy he is to be her husband. After performing the act, Harry gets into an argument with his wife Bess as she tells him that this was never about her anniversary, and it's all about him and how he only cares about entertaining an audience. After him and his wife fall out, Houdini hits rock bottom and finds himself in a situation in his life which for the first time he can't get out of. The next day he then finds himself doing a lot better, and when opening a window, he thinks of the perfect way to make things better with Bess and to elevate his career even further when he spots a flying mobile in the sky, which will become the most famous act he will perform in his life. But that's part 1 of Houdini. Thanks for watching, and be sure to subscribe for more movie recaps like this. And until next time guys, take care.